You are standing inside a limestone cave in northern Israel. The air is cool and damp, carrying the smell of ancient stone and darkness. This is Jotapata, called Jotapata in the 1st century. Above you, archaeologists have mapped Roman arrowheads scattered across the ruins. Below your feet, in this very chamber, 39 men died by their own hands in the year 67. They were not the first to die here. 6,000 people had already been slaughtered when Roman legions breached the walls after a 47-day siege. The streets ran with blood. Mothers clutched dead children. Roman soldiers, frustrated by weeks of resistance, showed no mercy. They had orders, no prisoners, no survivors, just death. But 41 men escaped. They found this cave system beneath the city, underground cisterns connected by narrow passages. They had water, they had little food. They could survive for weeks, maybe months, hidden in the darkness while Rome destroyed everything above them. Then someone betrayed them, a woman who knew the hiding place. She told the Romans. Soldiers surrounded the cave entrance, called down into the blackness, offered terms of surrender. One man wanted to accept. The other 40 refused. They had seen crucifixion. They knew what Romans did to rebel leaders. Naked, whipped until flesh hung in strips, nailed through the wrists and feet, left hanging for days, suffocating slowly, birds pecking at living flesh. Better to die as free men than live long enough to be tortured to death. So they made a pact, a lottery of death. They would kill each other in order, every third man eliminated, mathematical, ritualistic, dignified. 39 men died that way in the cave. Blood pooled on the limestone floor. Bodies piled in the darkness. 2 men survived. The mathematics worked out perfectly. Positions 16 and 31 in a circle of 41, counting by threes. 2 men standing among the corpses of their friends. One of them was named Yosef ben Matityahu, a 30-year-old Jewish priest from Jerusalem, an aristocrat, a man who had never commanded an army before being sent to defend Galilee against the greatest military power on earth, a man who had become the most hated traitor in Jewish history and the most important preserver of Jewish memory. The Romans gave him a new name, Flavius Josephus. He lived in the imperial palace in Rome. He dined with the emperors who destroyed Jerusalem and burned the temple. Or he wrote the only eyewitness accounts we have of the greatest catastrophe in ancient Jewish history. Without him, we would know almost nothing about Herod, the Pharisees, the destruction of the temple, Masada, or the world in which Jesus lived. Without him, there would be no non-Christian historical reference to Jesus from the 1st century. None at all. The Jews called him a traitor for 2,000 years. The Christians preserved his writings because they needed his testimony about Jesus. And the question that has haunted scholars for centuries is simple. What happened in that cave? Did Josephus calculate the safe positions and manipulate the lottery? Or did God spare him to bear witness to history? The answer matters less than the story. Because whether Josephus was a coward, a survivor, a prophet, or all three at once, what he wrote down changed everything. The man who walked out of the cave at Jotapata with his hands raised in surrender became the bridge between the ancient Jewish world and everyone who came after. This is his story, not the sanitized version, not the simple condemnation, the complicated, contradictory, shocking truth about a man who betrayed his people to save their history. I want to quickly apologize because finding authentic images for this topic is surprisingly difficult. Many are either protected, held in private collections, or not publicly accessible at all for secret reasons. Because of that, I might have to extend the duration of certain images longer than intended. With that being said, let's continue. Jerusalem, 37 AD. The year is disputed, but somewhere in the late 30s after Christ, a boy is born into one of the most powerful families in Judea. His father is Matthias, a priest of the highest order. Not just any priest. The first of the 24 courses, the course of Jehoiarib, direct descent from the Maccabees on his mother's side, royal and priestly blood flowing together. This is not minor privilege. This is the absolute peak of Jewish society. The temple in Jerusalem is not just a religious site, it is the beating heart of the entire nation. Bank, court, government, sanctuary, everything flows through it. Every year, Jews from across the Roman Empire send the temple tax, half a shekel of silver per adult male. Historians estimate over 1 million pilgrims visit Jerusalem during Passover alone. They need to exchange Roman currency for temple money. The money changers charge fees. They need to buy sacrificial animals, lambs, doves, cattle. The priests certify which animals are acceptable. The entire system generates enormous wealth, and the priestly families control it all. They manage the treasury, they oversee the sacrifices, they interpret which offerings are pure, they decide religious law, they negotiate with Rome, real power. Political, economic, and spiritual authority concentrated in a few dozen families. Joseph is born into the highest of them. His education begins immediately. By age 5, he is memorizing Torah, all 5 books, word for word, in Hebrew. By age 10, he can recite them perfectly. By age 14, according to his own later claims, senior priests are consulting him about interpretations of Mosaic law. This sounds like bragging. Josephus loved to praise himself, but there is probably truth in it. Aristocratic Jewish boys in Jerusalem received extraordinary education. Hebrew, Aramaic, eventually Greek. Study of scripture, oral tradition, ritual purity laws. A priest needed to know when a vessel became unclean, which skin diseases required isolation, how to examine sacrificial animals for blemishes, how many steps you could take on the Sabbath without violating the law. The education was technical, meticulous, obsessive. Every detail mattered. One mistake in the temple service could invalidate the entire sacrifice. Young priests trained for years before being allowed to participate in actual rituals. But Joseph is not satisfied with conventional training. At age 16, he does something unusual. He decides to experience Judaism's 3 main sects personally. Not just study them from books. Actually live as they live. Learn what they teach. See which path leads to truth. This reveals something about his character. Curiosity, ambition, maybe genuine spiritual seeking, maybe political calculation. A future leader needs to understand all factions, probably both at once. Joseph is complex, are capable of sincere religious devotion and shrewd political maneuvering simultaneously. First, the Sadducees, the temple aristocracy, wealthy priestly families who collaborate with Rome. They accept only written Torah as authoritative. They reject oral tradition. They do not believe in resurrection, angels, or fate. Man controls his own destiny through his choices. Their theology is conservative, their politics pragmatic. They maintain power by cooperating with Roman occupation. Joseph spends time with them, studies their interpretations, participates in their rituals. But something does not satisfy. Too worldly, too compromised, too focused on maintaining privilege rather than pursuing truth. Next, the Pharisees, urban middle class, merchants, craftsmen, scribes. They believe in oral tradition as much as written Torah. They teach resurrection, final judgment, angels and demons. They emphasize holiness in daily life. How to eat, pray, keep Sabbath, treat the poor. They have enormous influence over common people. Every village synagogue follows Pharisaic teaching. Joseph studies with them, learns their legal reasoning, observes their strict interpretation of purity laws. They are rigorous, disciplined, deeply committed, but sometimes legalistic, sometimes more concerned with technical compliance than spiritual reality. Then the Essenes, radicals who withdraw from society. Most live at Qumran near the Dead Sea. They practice celibacy, communal ownership, constant ritual washing. They believe the Jerusalem temple is corrupt, that the priesthood is illegitimate, that the whole sacrificial system is polluted. They wait for the end of the age. 2 messiahs will come, they teach, one priestly, one kingly. There will be a final war between sons of light and sons of darkness. God will intervene, the wicked destroyed. A new temple will descend from heaven. Joseph visits Qumran, experiences their discipline, their isolation, their absolute certainty, but it is too extreme, too separated from the real world. How do you help ordinary people if you hide in the desert waiting for apocalypse? None of the 3 sects satisfy completely. So Joseph does something even more radical. He hears of a hermit named Bannus, a wild man living alone in the Judean wilderness, clothed in leaves and bark, eating only wild plants, bathing repeatedly in cold water, day and night, seeking purity. The same wilderness where John the Baptist had preached a few years earlier. Brutal environment. Scorching days, freezing nights, no shelter, no comfort, just rock and sky and silence. Joseph goes to him, stays 3 years, 3 years living as a desert ascetic, a young aristocrat, heir to priestly power and wealth, sleeping in caves and eating roots. Why? What is he seeking? Maybe spiritual authenticity, freedom from the corruption and compromise of Jerusalem. Maybe credentials no rival can question. 3 years with a holy man in the wilderness gives you an aura of sanctity. Probably both. Joseph is always both sincere and calculating. When he returns to Jerusalem at 19, he has changed. He has experienced the extremes. He has tested himself, and he makes his choice. He aligns with the Pharisees, not because they are perfect, but because they are the future. Joseph sees what most do not. The Sadducees depend entirely on the temple. If the temple falls, they vanish. Their power, wealth, theology, everything flows from that building. The Essenes are too pure for the real world. The Zealots want war but have no chance against Rome. The Pharisees have resilience. Their authority comes from Torah interpretation, not temple control. From synagogues in every village, not from one building in Jerusalem. From loyalty of common people, not from political power. If everything collapses, and Joseph already suspects it will, the Pharisees will survive. Their religion is portable. You can be Pharisaic in Jerusalem or Babylon or Rome. The location does not matter. Just Torah, teachers, community. It is a calculated bet, and it is correct. After 70 AD, when the temple burns and the priesthood ends, the Pharisees rebuild Judaism. They create rabbinic Judaism. The Sadducees disappear. The Essenes are destroyed. The Zealots die fighting. But the Pharisees survive, adapt, and preserve the faith for 2,000 years. Around 64 AD, when Joseph is 26 or 27, opportunity comes. Some Jewish priests have been imprisoned by the Roman governor Antonius Felix. The reasons are vague, politics probably. What matters is they need to be freed. Someone must go to Rome, negotiate, use connections. Joseph volunteers. It is dangerous. Sea travel is unpredictable, but it is also the chance of a lifetime to see Rome, to meet powerful people, to observe how the empire actually works. The journey begins badly. The ship wrecks in the Adriatic. 600 people aboard. Total darkness. Freezing water. Panic. People drowning. Screaming. Calling for help that will not come. Joseph grabs debris, a piece of broken ship, clings to it all night. The cold is shocking. Waves washing over him, swallowing seawater, choking, gasping, fighting to stay conscious. Around him, people give up, sink beneath the surface. 520 die. At dawn, another ship appears, rescues him. 80 survivors out of 600. The first sign that Joseph has extraordinary luck, or that God is protecting him, or both. He arrives at Puteoli near Naples, soaked, exhausted, traumatized, but alive. And then he sees Rome. The impact is overwhelming. Jerusalem is impressive. Herod's temple is considered a wonder of the world, but Jerusalem has maybe 150,000 people. Rome has 1 million. Apartment buildings 5 or 6 stories high, crowded into dark alleys, of fires constantly breaking out, but also splendor. The forum where Cicero spoke and Caesar was assassinated. The Palatine Hill with imperial palaces. The Circus Maximus holding 250,000 spectators. Aqueducts bringing water from 80 kilometers away. And the power, the absolute crushing power of empire. Legions that could be deployed anywhere. Roads connecting every province. Bureaucracy that tracked and taxed and controlled. This is what runs the world. This is what the zealots think they can fight with daggers and faith. Joseph needs access to power. He finds it through a Jewish actor named Aliturus. Actors occupy strange positions in Roman society. Socially despised but often intimate with aristocrats. They perform at private parties. They entertain in powerful homes. They have access. Where Aliturus is Nero's personal favourite, he performs in the emperor's private theatrical productions. Nero loves to act and sing. He hosts performances for select audiences. Everyone must applaud enthusiastically or risk imperial displeasure. Aliturus is part of this world. Through Aliturus, Joseph meets Poppaea Sabina, the empress, beautiful, ambitious, intelligent, ruthless. She had been married to Nero's friend Otho. Nero fell in love with her, sent Otho to govern Portugal as far from Rome as possible, divorced his own wife Octavia, married Poppaea. The detail that matters. Poppaea is sympathetic to Judaism, a God-fearer. She respects the Jewish God, observes some Jewish practices. There were many such people in Rome. Gentiles attracted to Judaism's ethics, ancient scriptures, monotheism, close communities. But they stopped short of full conversion because circumcision for men was too extreme. Joseph wins Poppaea's favour. How? Personal charm, theological explanations that make Judaism seem like sophisticated philosophy, appropriate gifts, perfumes from Judea, balsam, dates from Jericho, fine textiles, nothing too lavish, which would seem like bribery, just tokens of respect. The imprisoned priests are released, mission accomplished. Joseph returns to Jerusalem in 65 carrying gifts from the empress, and something more valuable: information, knowledge, understanding. He has seen the empire from inside. He has walked the corridors of power. He has observed Roman thinking, decision-making, military capacity, and he understands brutal truth. Rome is not just strong. Rome is invincible. Roman legions are not just soldiers. Since they are engineers who build roads, bridges, fortified camps. Each legionary carries tools to construct a complete fort in hours. Roman logistics can move entire armies across continents and supply them indefinitely. Josephus does the math. Judea has maybe 2.5 million people. The empire rules 70 million. The legions number nearly 300,000 professional soldiers. The zealots have courage and faith in hidden daggers. They have no chance. Joseph keeps this conclusion private, saying it aloud in Jerusalem, where hatred of Rome boils in every street, where any hint of sympathy for occupiers means a Sicarii dagger in your back during festivals, when crowds make assassination easy, would be suicide. But he knows. War means destruction, inevitable, total, complete. The war does not wait, May 66. The Roman governor Gessius Florus plunders the temple treasury. 17 talents of gold. A fortune. He claims back taxes. Probably just theft. The people revolt. Demonstrations erupt. Crowds fill the temple courts shouting protests. Florus sends soldiers. Massacre. More revolt. More massacre. Violent spirals. Then the impossible happens. The rebels win. They overwhelm the Roman garrison in Jerusalem, surround it, annihilate it, kill the soldiers, seize weapons and armor. The psychological impact is enormous. Jews have defeated Romans in Jerusalem. It seems like a sign from God, like the beginning of the Messianic age. The governor of Syria, Cestius Gallus, marches south with an entire legion, the 12th Fulminata. About 30,000 men, including auxiliaries, to crush the revolt before it spreads. He is defeated in ambush at Beth Horon, a narrow mountain pass northwest of Jerusalem. Jews attack from the heights, roll stones down on the column, shoot arrows from concealed positions, refuse to stand and fight in open battle where Roman discipline dominates. The legion is strung out, unable to form proper battle lines. The ambush is devastating. Over 5,000 Roman soldiers die. The legion loses its eagle standard, the aquila, the most sacred symbol of Roman military honor. To lose the eagle is the worst possible disgrace. Entire legions have been disbanded for it. This is not just military defeat. This is spiritual and moral catastrophe. The news spreads. God is with us. Victory is possible. Messianic prophecies are being fulfilled. In Jerusalem, zealots seize control, set up provisional government. They begin preparing for full-scale war. And Joseph, the man who knows it will end in catastrophe, is appointed military commander of Galilee. The appointment is absurd. He is 29. He has never commanded an army, never fought in a battle. His military experience is zero, and the Sanhedrin hands him the most vulnerable region in Judea, the first place Rome will attack when legions return. Why? Politics. Jerusalem is divided into factions, moderates who want negotiation, zealots who want total war, Sicarii who assassinate anyone speaking peace, aristocratic priests trying to maintain control, popular leaders competing for power. Joseph belongs to the moderate faction, or seems to. Sending him to Galilee solves problems. It puts the exposed region under centralized command, someone from Jerusalem who can coordinate defense. And it removes an ambitious young aristocrat from the city. If he succeeds, great. If he fails, blame is his. Joseph accepts ambition, duty, fear, calculation, all at once. Refusing would be more dangerous than accepting. Hesitation could be interpreted as treason, cowardice, secret sympathy for Rome. Winter 66 to 67, Joseph heads north. He finds chaos. Galilee is not unified. It is a mosaic. Villages, cities, ethnicities, conflicting loyalties. Jews alongside Greeks, Syrians, Phoenicians, different languages, religions, interests. Sepphoris, the largest city, refuses to join the revolt, chooses loyalty to Rome, fortifies against Jewish rebels, not Romans. Tiberius is divided. Part wants to fight, mostly the poor. Part wants to surrender, mostly the wealthy who prospered under Rome. Gischala in the far north has its own leader, John of Gischala. The rivalry between Joseph and John becomes one of the most intense personal conflicts of the war. John is everything Joseph is not. Joseph comes from priestly aristocracy, royal blood, refined education, political connections. John is an olive oil merchant from Galilean countryside, a trader who made his fortune smuggling. He has survivors' cunning, smuggling networks, and a militia of loyal peasants. Joseph sees the war as inevitable catastrophe that must be managed, losses minimized, some settlement reached if possible. John sees opportunity, power, revenge against Jerusalem aristocracy that always looked down on Galilean provincials, glory and wealth. They hate each other from the first meeting, instant mutual hostility. John accuses Joseph of being an impostor sent by Jerusalem to prevent local leaders from gaining power. He says the young priest is too soft, too cowardly, too Roman in thinking. He spreads rumors that Joseph plans to surrender Galilee to Rome. Joseph in his later writings portrays John as greedy, lying, bloodthirsty, a demagogue manipulating people for personal gain, a man without scruples who would murder anyone in his way. Who is right? Probably neither, or both. Both are self-interested, ambitious, willing to use violence. What we know, John tries to kill Joseph at least 4 times. Once he sends assassins disguised as supplicants, men who come pretending to ask for help. They draw daggers under their cloaks, rush him. His bodyguards barely stop them. Another time, John convinces a Sanhedrin faction to remove Joseph from command, sends letters accusing him of incompetence, betrayal, planning surrender, living luxuriously while soldiers starve. A delegation comes from Jerusalem to arrest Joseph. Joseph reverses it, gathers testimonials from Galilean villages, turns public opinion against the delegation, makes them seem like John's tools sent to disrupt defense. They return to Jerusalem without him. The rivalry continues. Meanwhile, Joseph tries the impossible. Prepare Galilee for Roman invasion with limited resources, time and control. The volunteers he gathers are mostly peasants, farmers who never held swords, merchants who never fought, young men seeking adventure, no money for equipment, no time for adequate fortifications. Joseph improvises. According to his claims, he organizes an army of over 100,000 men, divides them into units following Roman model, teaches trumpet signals, battle formations, marching discipline, fortifies main cities, Jotapata, Tiberias, Tariche, Gischala. The numbers are exaggerated. 100,000 would exceed any Jewish army in history. Modern historians estimate 20 to 60,000, mostly untrained. But Joseph does something, creates some structure, tries turning armed peasants into something that can at least slow Roman advance. He knows he cannot win. That was never realistic. The question is how long to hold out. Can he make conquest costly enough that Rome might negotiate, might offer terms, might allow some autonomy? He is not fighting for victory. He is fighting for the best possible outcome in an impossible situation. The answer comes spring 67. Nero, furious over Cestius Gallus's defeat, humiliated by Jewish revolt succeeding where others failed, summons his best general, Titus Flavius Vespasian, not an aristocrat, He comes from middle-class Italy, tax collectors and mule breeders, not the background that usually leads to high command, but he rose through merit, commanded legions in Germania fighting tribes, in Britain during conquest under Claudius, fought in over 30 battles in Britain alone, captured over 20 fortified towns, defeated 2 powerful tribes. He is known for absolute competence, brutal discipline, legendary stinginess. Soldiers call him Mulio, mule driver, because of humble origins and reputation for penny-pinching efficiency. Nero chooses him precisely because he seems politically safe. A general without noble lineage cannot aspire to the throne. Or so Nero thinks. Wrong, very wrong. Within 3 years, Vespasian is emperor. But now he's just a tough old general given a difficult job. Vespasian assembles approximately 60,000 men, 3 full legions, 5th Macedonica, 10th Fretensis, 15th Apollinaris, each with about 5,000 heavy infantry, plus auxiliaries from allied kingdoms, Syrian archers expert in long-range shooting, Arab cavalry light and fast for scouting, infantry from across the region, plus engineers, physicians, artillery specialists for siege machines. His son Titus commands 1 legion, 30 years old, handsome, charismatic, popular with troops. The soldiers love him, would do anything for him. He's been groomed for higher things, the largest military force the region has seen in decades. You're probably the largest ever deployed against Jewish rebellion, and it marches straight into Galilee with overwhelming force and professional competence. Cities fall like dominoes. Sepphoris opens gates without fight. It had chosen Rome from the start. Romans do not plunder it, reward loyalty, use it as base. Gabara is taken in 1 assault. 1 day, the town resists. Romans bring siege engines, breach walls, pour in. Defenders fight desperately but have no chance. The entire town is destroyed as example, warning to others. Then Vespasian turns toward Jotapata, small city, maybe 7,000 people, rocky hill in Lower Galilee, strong natural defences, only one good approach from north. Not strategically critical, not wealthy, but symbolic, and most importantly Joseph is there. Joseph is in Tiberias when he learns Vespasian is marching on Jotapata. The city had begged him to come, command defence, give them a chance. He could have stayed in Tiberias, larger city, better fortifications, could have fled to Jerusalem, could have found any excuse to avoid being trapped in besieged city. But he enters Jotapata, takes command. Why? Some say honour. A commander does not abandon his men. Joseph had appointed garrison commanders throughout Galilee, promised support. Running away would be betrayal. Others say calculation. If he fled, zealots in Jerusalem would execute him for cowardice. John would use it as proof of treason. His reputation would be destroyed. Still others suggest, darkest interpretation, that Joseph already plans to surrender to Romans. Hold out long enough to look heroic. Then defect with cover of having fought first. We will never know his true motivation. What we know, May 67, Flavius Josephus locks himself inside a doomed city, and the siege begins. Vespasian surrounds the city methodically, professionally. No rushed assault, just careful, patient, overwhelming preparation. Romans build circumvallation wall, siege wall around entire perimeter, 8 feet high, built in days by thousands of legionaries working shifts, prevents escape, prevents reinforcements, prevents supplies. The city is sealed, isolated, alone. Then Vespasian positions siege engines, ballistae, giant crossbows that fire bolts capable of piercing shields, armour, pinning men to walls, catapults hurling 30-kilogram stones, smashing buildings, killing multiple men with one shot. A massive battering ram protected by wooden shed covered with hides soaked in water and vinegar to prevent burning. The defenders resist with everything, with courage, desperation, ingenuity. Joseph organizes defense, posts guards on walls, 4-hour shifts, fresh men replacing exhausted men, constant vigilance, leads night sorties, attacks Roman siege works, sets fire to wooden towers, pours oil, throws torches, dry wood ignites, flames climbing, tower collapsing, Romans screaming. They attack battering ram shed, try burning it. The hides are soaked, hard to ignite, but if you get close enough, pour enough oil, throw enough torches, sometimes it works. Shed burns, ram destroyed, days of Roman work lost. They pour boiling oil down on soldiers scaling walls. Romans bring ladders, soldiers climb, carrying shields, wearing armour. Leia, right? Yeah, climbing toward battlements. Defenders wait. Let them climb, get close, then pour. Cauldrons of oil heated until bubbling. Pour down ladders. Oil soaks through armour, burns skin. Men scream, fall, die in agony. They throw stones, massive stones, boulders, drop from walls onto Roman soldiers below, impact crushing, helmets crumpled, skulls shattered, bodies broken. Romans learn to approach under testudo, tortoise formation, shields interlocked creating protective shell. But even testudo breaks under heavy stones from height. They dig tunnels under Roman siege ramp. Romans are building massive ramp, earthen stones piled higher against western wall, where hill is lower. Ramp will bring battering, ram and troops to wall height, allow direct attack on fortifications. Defenders dig tunnels under ramp, trying to collapse it. Mining. Ancient siege technique, dig under structure, support tunnel with wooden beams. When deep enough, burn beams. Tunnel collapses, ramp above collapses. Romans start over. 47 days. 47 days, a town of 7,000 holds off 3 Roman legions. 60,000 men. The best equipped military force in the ancient world. Archaeology confirms much of what Josephus later writes. Excavations at Jotapata have uncovered Roman arrowheads by hundreds. Catapult projectiles weighing 20 to 30 kilograms. Remains of assault ramp still visible on western slope. A mass grave with about 30 bodies. Men, women, children. Evidence of hastily built fortifications. Population figures Josephus gives are exaggerated. He speaks of 40,000 dead. Impossible. City likely had no more than 7,000 total, but resistance was real. Suffering was real. Courage was real. On the 47th day, Jotapata falls. Not through Roman brilliance overwhelming defence, not through walls collapsing from bombardment, but through betrayal. A deserter tells Romans that guards doze just before dawn, exhausted after nights on watch. When shift almost over, they relax, sit down, close eyes. Titus plans the assault personally, selects elite unit, men he trusts completely, experienced, disciplined, quiet, capable of moving silently in darkness, capable of climbing walls, fighting close quarters, killing efficiently. He briefs them, explains plan, waits for right night. Before dawn, in darkness before sun rises, Roman soldiers approach Jotapata walls in absolute silence. No talking, no metal clinking, cloth wrapped around swords, armour. Move carefully, slowly. Place feet deliberately, avoid rocks that might shift. They reach wall, guards above dozing, exhausted, unaware. Romans place ladders quietly, then climb, shield in one hand, sword in other, one rung at a time, slow, steady, silent, professional. They reach top, guards sleeping. Romans kill them quickly, quietly, knives, hands over mouths, throats cut. Guards die without waking, without screaming, without warning anyone. Romans move along wall, kill more guards, descend into city, reach gates, lift bars, push gates open from inside, and legions pour in, thousands of men, through gates, over walls, into Jotapata. The massacre is total, absolute. Vespasian had ordered no prisoners, no mercy, no quarter. Jotapata resisted 47 days, killed Roman soldiers, burned Roman siege engines, defied the greatest army in the world. Romans are furious, frustrated, humiliated, eager for revenge, eager to punish, eager to kill. Soldiers are given permission, encouraged even. Kill everyone, take everything. No rules, no limits, just revenge. Legionaries unleash fury, pent-up frustration from 47 days, watching comrades die, being mocked from walls, failing to take small town. Now they have their chance. Men cut down in streets, trying to run, trying to fight, trying to surrender, does not matter. Killed. Women hunted in homes, dragged out, raped, killed. Children killed. Elderly. Everyone. No discrimination. No mercy. Blood runs through narrow stone alleys, pools in streets, bodies pile in doorways, in courtyards, in central square. The city that resisted 47 days falls in hours. 6,000 people killed that day, and 1,200 women and children taken as slaves, the ones soldiers decided to keep, dragged out, chained, marched to coast, sold in markets, families torn apart, never to see each other again, bodies burned, houses burned, city destroyed, walls demolished. What Romans cannot take, they destroy. Jotapata ceases to exist as functioning city, becomes ruin, warning, monument to Roman power and Jewish resistance and terrible price of defiance. Josephus is not among the 6,000 killed, not among 1,200 enslaved. He is alive, hidden, as city burns around him, as everyone else dies. He is underground, in a cave, with 40 companions. A city was falling as Romans broke through and began slaughter. Josephus and 40 men fled. Found opening, concealed cistern, underground system, complex of caves and tunnels beneath city. Connected passages, water storage, food storage, designed as refuge, last resort, place to hide when everything else fails. They descend into darkness. 41 men, officers, soldiers, leaders, men who fought on walls, who led defense, who are marked for death. Romans want them specifically, want to crucify them, want to make examples, want to parade them through Rome in chains, want revenge. Romans do not find them immediately. They search ruins for days, killing survivors, collecting plunder, rounding up prisoners, going through every building, every room, every cellar, looking for anyone hiding, for valuables, for weapons. Vespasian wants Josephus, specifically, alive. The enemy commander is valuable trophy, prize, political value, propaganda value, could be paraded in Roman triumph. The general who held out 47 days, dragging him in chains through Rome, humiliating him, executing him publicly. That would show the world, demonstrate, resistance is futile. Rome always wins. Then a woman betrays them. A woman who had been hiding, who knew about the cistern, who knew Josephus was down there. Maybe she hoped for mercy, maybe reward. Maybe she was tortured. Maybe she just talked. We do not know. But she tells Romans, points to place, shows where entrance is. Roman soldiers surround cistern, block exits, call down into darkness ordering surrender. a tribune named Nicanor is sent to negotiate. Nicanor knows Josephus. From where? Unclear exactly. Perhaps Rome. Perhaps they met before when Josephus visited imperial capital. Perhaps friends, or at least not enemies. Nicanor calls down, promises Josephus's life will be spared, that he will be treated with dignity, that Vespasian wants him alive, that if he surrenders he will not be harmed, not tortured, not crucified, not killed, just taken prisoner, held for Vespasian to decide, reasonable offer, way out, chance to live. Josephus wants to surrender, wants to accept, wants to live. He has done the math again. War is lost, Galilee has fallen, Jerusalem will fall, temple will be destroyed, Rome will win. That is certain. Dying in cave accomplishes nothing, saves no one, changes nothing. Better to live, survive, preserve life, maybe do some good later, maybe help people somehow, maybe bear witness, record what happened. Someone has to survive, someone has to remember. Why not him? But his 40 companions disagree, violently, absolutely, emphatically. To them surrender is unthinkable, impossible, worse than death. Betrayal of everything, of God, of people, of cause, of comrades who died on walls, of 6,000 killed in massacre, of honour, of dignity, of everything that matters. For devout first-century Jews, surrendering to pagans is not just political. It is spiritual. Betrayal not only of people, but of God himself. Betrayal of covenant, of promises, of faith of Abraham and Moses and Maccabees. The Maccabees had refused to surrender. Eleazar, one of Jewish martyrs during persecution under Antiochus Epiphanes, was tortured, commanded to eat pork, refused, tortured to death, praised as hero, 7 brothers and their mother, brought before king, commanded to violate law, refused, tortured to death one by one, mother watching sons die, then dying herself, martyrs, heroes, models of faithfulness. Josephus's companions appeal to that tradition, invoke those examples. This is the moment. This is the test. Will they be faithful like Maccabees, like Daniel, like prophets, or will they betray everything? They say death is preferable to slavery, that they should die as free men, not as chained animals led to market, not as property bought and sold, not as victims of Roman amusement, as men, with dignity, with choice. They say God will receive them, that dying for covenant is not death but martyrdom, that they will be rewarded in world to come, that resurrection awaits righteous, that this life is not all there is, and they propose pact, collective suicide, not individuals killing themselves frantically, not chaos of everyone stabbing themselves at once, but organised, ritual, dignified, a lottery, drawing lots, numbers. Each man draws number, then they kill each other according to numbers, order, procedure, making death into ceremony rather than panic. Josephus tries to dissuade them, makes every argument he can think of. He says suicide is sin, that law forbids it, that God gives life and only God can take it, that deliberately killing yourself is murder, self-murder, as forbidden as murdering anyone else. He argues there is hope. Perhaps they could escape, perhaps negotiate, perhaps situation would change, perhaps Jerusalem would send relief, that giving up is premature, that while there is life there is hope. He argues dying unnecessarily is not courage but waste, that it is not heroic, that God has not called them to die in this cave, that their deaths would accomplish nothing, save no one, help no one, just 41 more bodies, 41 more martyrs nobody would remember. It does not work. His arguments fail. Men are beyond reasoning, beyond logic, traumatized, terrified, despairing. Certain death is inevitable, and choosing how to die is only freedom left. His companions become furious, call him coward, traitor, betrayer. He's just trying to save own skin, willing to compromise, to surrender to pagans, to live as slave rather than die as free man. Some draw swords, threaten to kill him right there, before he can surrender to Romans, before he can betray them all. Josephus sees death in their eyes, sees they mean it, that they would kill him. Right now, if he pushes further, he has to participate, or die immediately. And then, in that moment of absolute terror and desperation, Josephus makes proposal, suggestion. If we are going to die, he says, let us do it properly, with order, with dignity, according to law and procedure, not like animals in panic, but like men, like Jews, according to tradition. Let us draw lots, numbers, each man gets number, then we count. First kills second, third kills fourth, fifth kills sixth, and so on, until only one man remains. That last man will have fulfilled pact, will have participated, will have killed one person as required, and then he can choose, can kill himself, or can choose life, can surrender, can do whatever conscience dictates, but pact will have been kept, honour satisfied. It is brilliant, manipulative, calculating, deceptive, or desperate, or inspired, or all at once. The proposal gives men what they want. Ritual death. Organised, dignified, each man participating, killing and being killed. Yeah, not committing suicide directly, but participating in mutual execution. Satisfies honour, satisfies pact, satisfies need for ceremony. But it also gives Josephus a chance, if he can position himself correctly, if he can manipulate lottery, if he can calculate which positions survive, then maybe, just maybe, he can live. Companions accept. Why? Maybe because method gives act appearance of dignity, makes it feel more like ritual than suicide, more like sacrifice than self-murder. Maybe because Josephus, even in that extreme moment, even with swords pointed at him, can still persuade, can still present arguments, can still make things seem reasonable. Maybe because they're too desperate to think clearly, too traumatized to see manipulation. The lots are drawn, each man draws number, 1 through 41, then they form circle. Stand in ring, in darkness of cave, swords drawn, ready, and killing begins. What happened in that cave over following hours is impossible to know with certainty. Josephus is our only source. He has every possible reason in the world to lie, to distort, to omit, to reshape narrative to make himself look better, to justify what he did, to claim divine providence rather than human manipulation. What he says, men formed circle, stood in order, they counted by threes. Every third man killed by man before him in circle. 1, 2, 3. Third man dies. 4, 5, 6. Sixth man dies. 1 by 1. Numbers counted off. 1 by 1. Bodies fell to cave floor. Blood ran over stones. Air grew heavy with smell of death. Voices counting in darkness. Sound of steel, gasping, dying. And when it was over, when counting was done, when 39 men lay dead on cave floor, 2 men remained standing, Josephus and one other. Out of 41 men, 2 survivors. Mathematics had worked out exactly that way. Precisely. 2 men left. Here enters one of most fascinating details of entire story. Something that has intrigued mathematicians for 2,000 years. The Josephus problem. now classic puzzle in mathematics and computer science, taught in algorithms classes, used to illustrate recursive programming. Question is simple to state but complex to solve. If you have an people standing in circle and you eliminate every k'th person, going around circle until only one remains, which position must you occupy to be last survivor? With 41 people and counting by threes, eliminating every third person, there are 2 safe positions. Mathematical analysis shows positions 16 and 31 will be last 2 survivors. Those positions, specifically, not random, not luck, mathematics. Josephus was educated man, priest educated in finest schools in Jerusalem, training in logic and calculation. Jewish priest had to calculate calendar, complex lunar calculations with intercalated months, astronomy, mathematics. He was capable of working out problems like this, smart enough, educated enough. It is possible, some would say likely, that Josephus calculated exactly where to place himself in circle, that he manipulated drawing of lots, rigged it somehow, made sure he drew number 16 or number 31, made sure he was in one of safe positions, so that he engineered entire procedure specifically to guarantee his survival, while appearing to submit to same fate as companions. A Syriac version of Josephus's work, discovered centuries later in medieval manuscript form, contains revealing line that does not appear in any Greek version. It says, speaking of Josephus in cave, he counted the numbers with cunning and thus deceived them all. Deceived. With cunning, calculated, manipulated. That is what Syriac version says, explicitly, directly. Was this line original? Did Josephus actually write it? Did some early copyist add it as commentary? Did medieval scribes who hated Josephus as traitor insert it to condemn him? Was it censored from Greek versions because it made Josephus look too calculating? We will never know. What we do know is mathematics works. The positions 16 and 31 are safe positions with 41 people counting by threes. That Josephus ended up in one of those positions. That could be pure chance, random luck. It could happen by accident, or it could be calculation, deliberate manipulation, desperate man using intelligence to survive, using mathematics to engineer escape while maintaining plausible deniability, claiming divine providence when it was actually human cunning. What we know is 2 men were left alive, Josephus and one other, surrounded by 39 corpses, blood pooling on cave floor, smell of death, horror, trauma, weight of what had just happened, swords in hand, pact technically fulfilled, 39 dead, 2 alive. Time to complete ritual. Josephus does not do it, does not kill his companion, does not fulfill final obligation, does not complete suicide pact. Instead, he convinces the other man to surrender with him, both of them, to walk out together, to live. How? What arguments did he use? Text does not tell us. Josephus, who wrote thousands of words justifying himself, who explained every other decision in exhaustive detail, said almost nothing about this moment, just that he convinced the man, that they agreed, that both came out with hands raised. Maybe he said God wanted them to live, that their survival was providential, that God had preserved them for purpose, that throwing lives away would be rejecting God's gift. Maybe he said Romans had promised safety, that surrender was not death but survival. Maybe he just wore the man down, exhausted him, talked until resistance collapsed. We will never know. Josephus never told us, left it unexplained, or mysterious, ambiguous. What we know is both men dropped swords, both walked to entrance, Both emerged into light, both raised hands in surrender, and Roman soldiers waiting seized them, bound their hands, brought them up out of cistern, out of cave of death, into sunlight, into custody. Roman soldiers took them to Vespasian, to command tent, to general, to judgment. Imagine scene. Roman general seated, veteran of decades of war, 57 years old, hard eyes, face weathered by sun of 3 continents, around him tribunes and centurions, waiting to see famous prisoner, and before him 30-year-old man, covered in blood, not his own blood, blood of 39 men who died in cave, thin from hunger of siege, exhausted from 47 days of constant fighting, trembling with exhaustion and fear and trauma, hands bound, surrounded by soldiers with drawn swords. Vespasian ordered him chained. Standard procedure. Enemy commanders were valuable prisoners, too valuable to risk escape, would be sent to Rome as trophies, paraded through streets in emperor's triumph. But before chains were fastened, Josephus asked to speak privately with General, asked for private audience, claimed he had something important to say, something that could not be said in front of others. Vespasian could have refused, could have had him dragged out. But something made him pause. Curiosity, maybe. Man had held out 47 days, maybe deserved to be heard, maybe had information. Vespasian agreed, ordered everyone out except son Titus and 2 trusted friends. Tent cleared, guards posted outside, flaps closed, and Josephus stood before General, 4 men in private. And then Josephus said something extraordinary, something that sounded like madness, or desperation, or blasphemy, or inspired prophecy. You think, Vespasian, that you have captured only prisoner, but I come to you as messenger of greater things. If I were not sent by God, I would know law of Jews. I would know how General ought to die. I would have killed myself in that cave with my men, but I did not die. I am here because God sent me to tell you something. Vespasian frowned. What kind of speech was this? Josephus continued. You will send me to Nero. Why? To parade me in chains? But how long will Nero remain in power? Not long. Nero will fall, others will come and fall, and you, Vespasian, you will be Caesar, you will be emperor, you and this your son after you. I've been sent by God to tell you this, to prophesy this. This is why I survived. Absolute silence, stunned silence. Josephus had just prophesied that obscure general from modest family would become emperor of Rome. That entire Julio-Claudian dynasty would end. That new dynasty would begin with Vespasian. Was it madness? Blasphemy? Desperate lie to save life? Vespasian did not believe it. Not immediately. He suspected trick. Prisoners said anything to save skin, made up stories, flattered, lied. But he did not kill Josephus. Something about those words stayed with him, made him pause. Romans believed in omens, in prophecies, and deep down, though he would never admit it publicly, Vespasian desired more than he acknowledged. Josephus was kept as prisoner but with privileged treatment, not sent to Rome, not chained in cell, guarded but not abused, given good food, clean clothing, protection. And he waited. Months that followed were whirlwind. Vespasian continued campaign, city by city, Tarishi, Gamala, Gishala. John of Gishala fled to Jerusalem where he would become one of leaders of final resistance. Meanwhile, Rome was imploding. Nero, increasingly paranoid and unpopular, faced rebellion from legions. In June 68, Senate declared him public enemy, soldiers coming to kill him. Nero fled Rome, hid in villa. When he heard troops approaching, killed himself. His last words, "What an artist dies in me." What came next was chaos. Year of 4 emperors. Galba came first, lasted 7 months, assassinated by Praetorian Guard. Otho lasted 3 months, defeated by Vitellius. Otho killed himself. Vitellius spent months in banquets while empire fell apart. In East, legions were moving. July 69, as prefect of Egypt proclaimed Vespasian emperor. Legions of Judea followed immediately. Syria joined. Half Roman army backed old general. Vespasian's forces marched on Rome, defeated Vitellius's forces. Vitellius hunted down, tortured, killed, body thrown in Tiber. December 69. Vespasian master of Rome. Prophecy had come true. Vespasian remembered. Ordered Josephus's chains broken with axe. Not merely removed, broken. Symbolic gesture. Meant Josephus should never have been chained. That he was not prisoner but prophet. Josephus received Roman citizenship. Massive privilege. He received name of imperial family. Flavius. From now on, Joseph ben Matityahu would be known as Titus Flavius Josephus. Transformation was complete. Rebel general who fought Rome was now emperor's protege. Priest of temple in Jerusalem now lived in imperial quarters. Commander of Jotapata now wore Roman toga and would attend banquets on Palatine. Jews had word for people like that. Traitor. But story was not over. Jerusalem still resisted. Temple still stood. And Josephus would watch its destruction from Roman side. Vespasian left for Rome. Task of finishing war fell to Titus, and at his side stood Flavius Josephus. Spring 70 AD, 4 Roman legions marched on Jerusalem. City was torn apart. 3 Jewish factions fighting one another. John of Gischala controlled temple. Simon bar Giora dominated upper city. Eliezer ben Simon held inner court of temple. 3 Jewish armies. 3 leaders who hated each other. And Rome was coming. While legions built camps, Jews inside city burned one another's grain stores, deliberately. Set fire to supplies that could have fed population for years. They preferred famine to seeing rivals well fed. Josephus watched from Roman camp. What did he feel? Despair, guilt, vindication, horror, all at once. He describes Jerusalem with evident love, walls, temple, feasts, crowds, and he describes its destruction with genuine horror. Titus used Josephus specifically, repeatedly sent privileged prisoner to walls to negotiate surrender, to beg defenders to give up. Imagine scene! Jew dressed in Roman clothing, protected by Roman shields, speaking from beneath walls he had helped defend in Galilee, asking own countrymen to abandon fight. Response was predictable. Arrows, stones, insults. Defenders called Josephus dog, traitor, sellout. One stone struck him in head, knocked unconscious. Romans dragged him away while Jews celebrated. But Josephus kept at it, or Titus forced him. He tried reasoning, said God had abandoned Jerusalem, that resistance was pointless, that Rome was invincible, that surrender would save lives. No one listened. Siege lasted 5 months. 5 months of absolute horror. Legions built assault ramps. Defenders burned them. Romans built new ramps. Siege engines bombarded city day and night. Inside Jerusalem, famine set in. Grain stores burned in civil war. Romans blocked food from entering. Population swollen by pilgrims trapped by siege began dying of starvation. Josephus describes scenes difficult to read even today. Families fighting over crumbs, people eating leather, hay, dung, mothers hiding food from own children, corpses thrown in streets, stench of death hanging over holy city, and then story that became symbol of all horror. A woman named Mary from wealthy family. Zealots looted her provisions, took everything. Hunger drove her mad. She took infant son, killed him, roasted half body, ate it. When zealots smelled roast meat and came demanding share, she showed them what was left. This is my own son, and this deed is mine. Eat, for I too have eaten. Men fled in horror. Josephus presents this as fulfillment of ancient prophecies. Deuteronomy had warned that if Israel forsook God, mothers would eat own children during sieges. But beyond theological symbolism, it was Roman propaganda. It showed how far Jews had fallen in insane resistance. August 70 AD, legions breached Third Wall. Battle for Temple was apocalyptic. Defenders fought with suicidal desperation. Every portico, courtyard, stairway contested hand to hand. Romans advanced over heaps of corpses. Blood ran down marble steps. Titus, according to Josephus, wanted to preserve Temple. It was one of wonders of ancient world. Destroying it would be waste. But in heat of battle, Roman soldier threw torch through golden window. Fire spread. Temple of Jerusalem began to burn. It was 9th of Av, 70 AD. Very same day, according to Jewish tradition, that Nebuchadnezzar had destroyed First Temple 656 years earlier. Josephus was there, saw flames, heard screams. While Temple was burning, soldiers plundered everything they found and slaughtered all they captured. Number of dead impossible to calculate precisely. Josephus speaks of 1,100,000 dead. Modern historians consider that exaggerated, but even conservative estimates speak of hundreds of thousands. Survivors were enslaved. Strongest sent to mines in Egypt, others distributed through arenas of empire to die fighting beasts or gladiators. John of Gishala captured in tunnels trying to escape. Taken to Rome for triumph, then executed. Temple was never rebuilt, not to this day. Destruction of 70 AD changed Judaism forever. Without Temple, no more sacrifices, no functioning priesthood, no physical center. Judaism we know today, built on synagogues and rabbis and law study, was born from ashes of that catastrophe. But war did not end completely. 3 fortresses still resisted: Herodium, Machaerus, Masada. First 2 fell quickly. Masada held out. Masada was rock plateau in Judean desert, 400 meters high with sheer cliffs. Herod had built absurdly luxurious palace fortress there. Pools, baths, mosaics, storehouses. A band of Sicarii had seized fortress early in revolt. 73 AD, Legio Ex Fretensis surrounded Masada. Governor Flavius Silva commanded construction of massive assault ramp, used thousands of Jewish prisoners as labor, stone upon stone, earth upon earth. Ramp climbed western slope. Recent archaeological studies revealed siege was shorter than traditionally believed. Ramp took only few weeks to build. Romans came, saw, conquered with brutal efficiency. When ramp was ready, Eleazar ben Yair proposed collective suicide. Josephus reproduces 2 long speeches by Eleazar persuading people to die. 960 people died that night. Men killed own families. 10 men chosen by lot killed all others. Finally, 1 last man killed, remaining 9, and killed himself. Romans entered next morning expecting battle, found silence and bodies. 2 women and 5 children survived hidden in cistern. They told story. For decades, Masada was symbol of Jewish heroism. Israeli soldiers swore oath there, Masada shall not fall again. But modern historians increasingly question narrative. Sicarii of Masada were terrorists who murdered other Jews. Mass suicide may not have happened as Josephus describes. While Jerusalem burned and Masada resisted, Flavius Josephus was building new life in Rome. Vespasian gave him apartment in imperial palace, annual pension, land in Judea, full Roman citizenship. Josephus lived under protection of 3 emperors, Vespasian, Titus, Domitian, entire Flavian dynasty. But he did not live in peace. Romans suspected him. Eastern barbarian who fought against them. Jews despised him. Traitor who watched temples' destruction from enemies' side. His personal life was turbulent. Married 4 times. First wife lost during siege of Jotapata. Second was captured Jewish woman Vespasian assigned to him. She left as soon as freed. Third was Jewish woman from Alexandria. They had 3 sons. Only one survived childhood. Josephus divorced her. Fourth was Jewish aristocrat from Crete. Pattern is revealing. Josephus tried to maintain ties with Jewish community through marriage. But those ties were fragile. Women left him. Children died. And in middle of all this, he wrote, his first work was Jewish War. 7 volumes on Great Revolt, written first in Aramaic for Jews of East, then translated to Greek. Work is propaganda. Yes, Josephus worked for Flavians, needed to show Roman victory was inevitable, that Jewish resistance was insane, or that temple's destruction was fault of Jewish radicals, not Titus. But it is also eyewitness testimony. Irreplaceable. Josephus saw sieges, new commanders on both sides, walk through smoking ruins of Jerusalem. No other source offers anything comparable. His second work was Jewish Antiquities, 20 volumes on history of Jewish people from creation to his own time. Monumental project, attempt to explain Jews to Roman world. It is in Antiquities that we find most controversial passages about early Christianity. Josephus mentions John Baptist, James, brother of Jesus, and then Testimonium Flavianum. 63 Greek words that have generated more academic debate than any other ancient text. Passage as it has come down says, at that time appeared Jesus, wise man, if indeed one ought to call him man. He performed astonishing deeds. He was Christ. When Pilate condemned him to cross, those who loved him did not cease, for he appeared to them on 3rd day alive again. Problem is obvious. Josephus was devout Jew, would never have written he was Christ. Dominant theory today is partial interpolation. Josephus wrote something about Jesus, probably neutral. Medieval Christian copyists added most enthusiastic lines. Arabic version says he was perhaps Messiah, more plausible for Jewish author. Syriac version says he was believed to be Christ, also more neutral. In 2025, scholar T.C. Schmidt published book using computational analysis, arguing passage is substantially authentic. Debate continues, will probably never be definitively resolved. But one thing is certain. Without Josephus, we would have no mention of Jesus in non-Christian first-century sources. None. Josephus is only external witness contemporary, or nearly contemporary to world in which Jesus lived. His third work was against Appian, defense of Judaism against anti-Semitic attacks. Anti-Semitism was virulent in ancient world. Josephus dismantled each accusation systematically. Josephus died around 100 AD. Exact date unknown. Domitian was assassinated 96 and with him ended protection of Flavian dynasty. Josephus likely did not survive long after. He died in Rome, far from Jerusalem, far from temple ruins, far from land where he was born, an exile, outsider, man without home. Jews ignored him for centuries deliberately. His name does not appear in Talmud, in Midrash, in any rabbinic literature. Silence was intentional. He was erased from collective memory. Christians preserved him. Josephus's manuscripts survived because medieval monks copied them. Interested in passages about Jesus, John Baptist, New Testament context. Church called him near Christian. Some even called him saint. 2,000 years have passed. Temple remains in ruins. Western Wall is all that remains. Jews go there to weep over loss from 2,000 years ago. Rome fell, empire fractured. Flavians turned to dust. But Josephus's books survived. And this is where story gets strange. Man his countryman called traitor became against all odds greatest preserver of ancient Jewish memory. Without Josephus, we would know almost nothing about Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, about Herod's temple, about political backstage of Roman Judea. Without Josephus, Masada would be archaeological site, great revolt would be footnote, men and debate over historical Jesus would look completely different. Modern Israel has complicated relationship with Josephus. For decades he was national villain. Schools held mock trials. Students debated traitor or survivor. Most convicted him, but something changed. Israeli historians began questioning Masada myth. Josephus began to be re-evaluated. Yes, he surrendered, but he also preserved, documented, bore witness. Jerusalem has a street named Yosef ben Matityahu, Hebrew name not Roman. Partial rehabilitation. In 2021, Israeli film Legend of Destruction used Josephus's writings as basis. Director wanted to show how internal division destroyed Jerusalem while Rome watched. Message: internal division destroyed our ancestors. It can destroy us again. Debate over Testimonium Flavianum remains alive. Did Jesus exist? Did Josephus write about him? Did Christians falsify text? Everyone cites Josephus. Everyone disagrees. But perhaps that is fitting. Josephus lived between worlds, Jew and Roman, rebel and collaborator, witness and propagandist. He preserved memory of temple he watched burn, documented war he helped lose, wrote history of people who rejected him. Traitor saved sacred history, not because he was holy, not because he was hero, because he survived, because he wrote, because someone had to tell what happened. Flavius Josephus was imperfect, ambiguous, possibly cowardly, certainly opportunistic, absolutely indispensable. If you had been in that cave at Jotapata, surrounded by 40 men determined to die, with Roman army waiting outside, what would you have done? You stand in cave at Jotapata, air cool and damp, smell of ancient stone. 39 men died here. 2 walked out alive. 1 became most hated traitor in Jewish history and most important witness to ancient Jewish world. Mathematics saved him, or God saved him, or he saved himself through cunning and calculation. Maybe all 3. Maybe none. Maybe it does not matter. What matters is he wrote it down. He told what happened. He preserved memory when everyone else was dead. He became bridge between ancient Jewish world that Rome destroyed and every generation that came after. The cave is empty now, silent. Just limestone and darkness and echoes of ancient death. But the words Josephus wrote still speak, still teach, still preserve memory of catastrophe that shaped Judaism and Christianity and history of Western world. Traitor, survivor, witness, prophet, coward, calculator. All of these, none of these. Josephus defies simple categories. He is too complicated, too human, too real, but indispensable, absolutely indispensable. Without him, the ancient Jewish world would be silence. Temple's destruction would be void. Context of Gospels would be mystery. Only external mention of Jesus in 1st century would not exist. The man who walked out of cave at Jotapata saved history by betraying his people. or saved his people's history by surviving when everyone else died? Or both? Contradiction, paradox, truth. But there is more to understand about how Josephus shaped our knowledge of the ancient world. His writings did not just record events, they interpreted them, they gave them meaning, they created the lens through which we see first-century Judaism. When Josephus wrote Jewish War in the 70s AD, he had specific agenda. Make Rome look merciful, make Jewish rebels look insane, absolve Titus of responsibility for burning temple, justify his own surrender by showing resistance was hopeless. But he also had to tell truth, because too many people knew what had happened. Veterans of the siege were still alive. Survivors of Jerusalem were scattered across empire. If Josephus lied too obviously, he would be exposed. So he had to balance propaganda with accuracy. The result is complicated text. Sometimes Josephus praises Roman mercy while describing brutal massacres. Sometimes he condemns Jewish rebels while admitting their courage. Sometimes he blames zealots for temple's destruction, while acknowledging Titus could have stopped the fire. Modern historians have to read Josephus carefully, critically, asking constantly, is this fact or spin? Is this what happened or what Flavians wanted people to believe? But even with all propaganda, Josephus remains invaluable because he gives details no one else provides. The numbers of soldiers in each legion, the placement of camps around Jerusalem, the sequence of assaults on walls, the debates among Jewish leaders, the famine conditions inside city, the final hours before temple burned. No other source has any of this. Roman historians like Tacitus mention Jewish war briefly, a few sentences. Jewish sources like Talmud barely discuss destruction. Too painful, too traumatic. Josephus is it, only extended eyewitness account, and his descriptions are vivid, visceral. You can see the siege, smell the smoke, hear the screams. Josephus had literary talent. He could write compelling narrative, make ancient events come alive. Consider his description of final assault on temple. Romans have breached outer courts. Fighting rages in porticos. Defenders are exhausted. Romans are frustrated. Everyone knows end is near. Josephus describes Roman soldier, frustrated by resistance, grabbing burning brand and throwing it through golden window into temple chamber. Fire catches, spreads, smoke rises. Titus, according to Josephus, runs into burning building shouting orders to extinguish flames. But soldiers are in blood frenzy. They ignore him. They want destruction. They want revenge. Fire spreads. Ceiling collapses. Inner sanctuary burns. Is this true? Did Titus really try to save temple? Or is Josephus whitewashing his patron? We will never know, but description is powerful, memorable. It has shaped how people imagine temple's destruction for 2,000 years. His description of famine in Jerusalem is even more harrowing. Mothers eating their own children, people killing each other over scraps, dead bodies piled in streets. Josephus spares no detail, emphasizes horror, makes readers understand the cost of the zealots' insane resistance. This serves his propaganda purpose. Look what happens when you fight Rome. Look at the suffering. Look at the waste. But it also preserves memory, ensures that catastrophe is not forgotten, gives voice to victims who left no other record. When Josephus wrote Antiquities in the 90s, he had different purpose, no longer justifying Roman conquest, now explaining Jews to educated Roman audience, showing that Judaism is ancient, sophisticated, philosophical religion worthy of respect. He retells entire history, from creation through his own time. He uses Jewish scriptures as source but embellishes freely, adds details not in Bible, makes characters more dramatic, explains customs Romans would find strange. His account of Moses is fascinating. He makes Moses into Greek-style hero, brilliant general who leads Egyptian armies to victory over Ethiopians before becoming Hebrew liberator. None of this is in Bible. Josephus adds it to make Moses impressive to Roman readers who value military excellence. His account of Esther adds romantic details. His version of Daniel emphasizes prophetic accuracy. His description of Solomon's temple is far more elaborate than biblical account. Always, Josephus is shaping material for his audience, and then he reaches recent history. Herod, the Hasmoneans, Roman governors, events within living memory. Here Josephus is invaluable, because he had access to sources, court records, royal archives, eyewitness testimonies. His description of Herod is devastating. Brilliant builder, skilled politician, absolute monster. Murdered his favourite wife Mariamne out of jealous paranoia. Murdered a mother. Murdered his own sons. Died of horrible disease that Josephus describes in clinical detail. This is the Herod of Matthew's Gospel, the king who ordered slaughter of innocents in Bethlehem. Matthew does not invent that character. He uses Herod everyone knew, the Herod Josephus describes, capable of murdering children to protect his throne because he had already murdered his own family. Josephus's description of Pilate shows weak governor, easily manipulated, brutal to Jews but cowardly before crowds, more interested in keeping peace than administering justice. This matches gospel portraits. Pilate who allows crucifixion of Jesus despite finding no guilt, because crowd demands it, because it is easier than confrontation. His descriptions of various Jewish movements are crucial. Pharisees who believe in fate and resurrection, Sadducees who reject both, Essenes who live in communes and practice celibacy, and fourth philosophy, the Zealots, who refuse to call anyone master except God. Without Josephus, we would not understand Judaism's diversity in first century. We would not know that resurrection was controversial, that some Jews believed strongly while others rejected it completely. We would not understand the political tensions, the debates, the competing visions of how to be God's people under Roman occupation. And then there is the Testimonium Flavianum, those 63 Greek words that have generated libraries of scholarly debate. Did Josephus mention Jesus? If so, what did he say? How much is original? How much is Christian interpolation? The standard text says Jesus was wise man, if indeed one ought to call him man, that he performed surprising deeds. Was teacher accepted by many? That he was Christ? That Pilate condemned him? That those who loved him did not cease loving him? That he appeared to them third day alive again? That Christians named after him still exist? Every phrase is problematic. Josephus was Pharisaic Jew. He believed Messiah had not yet come. He would never have written Jesus was the Christ as simple statement of fact. That is Christian confession. Not Jewish reporting. He would never have casually mentioned resurrection as confirmed fact. He appeared to them alive. Just like that, no skepticism, no alternative explanation. That is not how Jewish historian writes about Christian claims. So scholars try to extract original Josephus from Christian additions, remove obvious confessions, keep neutral reporting. Maybe something like, at that time appeared Jesus, wise man. He performed surprising deeds, was teacher. Pilate condemned him to cross. But his followers did not abandon his teaching. They're called Christians after him. Plausible could be original, but we cannot be certain. All manuscripts have Christian version. No pre-Christian manuscripts survive. We are reconstructing hypothetical original from contaminated copies. But even if entire passage is Christian invention, Josephus mentions Jesus elsewhere. In passage about James, the brother of Jesus who is called Christ. This reference is universally accepted as authentic, brief, casual, identifying James by reference to more famous brother. This matters enormously, because it means Josephus knew about Jesus, knew about Christian movement, knew enough to identify people by relationship to Jesus. Even if testimonium is fake, Josephus provides independent first-century testimony to Jesus' existence. The alternative, that Jesus was invented later, becomes much harder to maintain. If Josephus writing in 90s knows about Jesus, mentions him casually as known figure, then Jesus must have been real person. Whatever you believe about resurrection or divinity, the human Jesus existed. Josephus confirms it. This is why Christians preserve Josephus's writings. Not because he was Christian. He was not. Yeah, but because he provided external validation. When skeptics questioned Gospels, Christians pointed to Josephus. See? Non-Christian historian mentions Jesus, confirms basic facts. Gospels are not making it up. Jews had different relationship with Josephus. For centuries they tried to forget him, erased his name, refused to copy his works. When they needed to know their own history, they relied on rabbinical sources, Talmud, Midrash, oral traditions. But those sources had problems. Rabbis were not writing history. They were teaching law, preserving tradition. When they mentioned historical events, it was to make theological points, not to record what actually happened. So their chronology is confused. Their numbers are symbolic rather than literal. Their descriptions of temple service are idealized rather than realistic. They preserve memory, but not precise history. Josephus preserves history, specific dates, actual numbers, real political conflicts, what it cost to build Herod's temple, how many people could fit in temple courts, what happened on which day during final siege. Eventually, even Jews had to admit they needed Josephus. By medieval period, some Jewish scholars were reading him, cautiously, critically, but reading him, because he had information they could not get anywhere else. Modern Jewish historians have embraced Josephus, not without criticism. They recognize his biases, his self-serving accounts, his propaganda for Rome, but they also recognize his value, his indispensability. Israeli archaeologist Yigael Yadin used Josephus to guide excavations at Masada in 1960s. On Josephus's descriptions of Herod's palaces matched ruins perfectly. His account of Roman siege ramp led to ramp on western slope. His description of zealot defences corresponded to archaeological finds. This vindicated Josephus, showed he was not just making things up. He exaggerated, he spun, but he based his accounts on real observations, on real knowledge of places and events. Modern excavations of Jerusalem have confirmed many of Josephus's descriptions. Third wall exists where he said it did. Towers stand where he placed them. Stone from Temple Mount shows burn marks from fire he described. Josephus lived complicated life after writing his histories, protected by emperors but scorned by both Romans and Jews, wealthy but isolated, honoured officially but despised socially. He married and remarried, trying to find connection, trying to maintain Jewish identity through Jewish wives. But marriages failed, women left, Children died young. He lived long life but lonely one. He saw Titus become emperor in 79. The man who destroyed Jerusalem now ruled empire. Josephus attended his court, witnessed his triumph, saw sacred objects from temple paraded through Roman streets, menorah, table of showbread, Torah scrolls, spoils of destroyed sanctuary displayed as trophies. How did that feel, to see his people's most sacred objects treated as plunder? To stand in crowds celebrating Rome's victory over his own nation? Did he justify it as God's will, as punishment for Jewish sins? Or did some part of him still identify as Jew, still mourn what was lost? He wrote nothing about his feelings, nothing personal, just kept writing history, recording, preserving, bearing witness. Titus died young in 81, only 41 years old, brief reign of just 2 years, replaced by younger brother Domitian. Domitian was paranoid, cruel, suspicious of everyone. He persecuted early Christians, executed senators, created climate of fear. But he protected Josephus, continued his pension, allowed him to keep writing, maybe because Josephus was harmless, an old man writing about ancient history, not political threat, not dangerous. Domitian was assassinated in 96, stabbed by conspirators including members of his own household. With him ended Flavian dynasty, and probably Josephus's protection. Josephus likely died shortly after, around 100 AD, maybe little later. But not much. He would have been in his 60s, old for that time. He'd lived through multiple emperors, multiple wars, complete transformation of the world he had known. He was buried somewhere in Rome, location unknown. No monument marks grave, no shrine preserves memory, just his writings, copied by monks, preserved in libraries, translated into Latin then vernacular languages, read by scholars, cited by theologians, studied by historians. For 2,000 years, Josephus has been most important source for ancient Jewish history, most problematic, most controversial, but most important. Because he is all we have. Modern scholarship has additional sources now: archaeology, Dead Sea Scrolls, other ancient texts. These allow checking Josephus, correcting him, supplementing him, but not replacing him. Josephus remains foundation, starting point, the source all others are measured against. His descriptions set framework, provide context, an established baseline of what we know, and his influence extends beyond history. He shaped Christian theology. Early church fathers read Josephus, used his descriptions of Pharisees and Sadducees to interpret Gospels, used his account of temple's destruction as proof of God's judgment on Jews for rejecting Jesus. This interpretation was not neutral. It fed anti-Semitism for centuries. Christians claimed God destroyed temple because Jews killed Jesus. Josephus seemed to confirm it. He described sins of Jewish leaders, corruption, fighting, madness. Christians read this as explaining why God allowed Rome to triumph. Josephus did not intend this. He was explaining to Romans why revolt happened, why they had to destroy Jerusalem. He was not providing Christian theology of supersessionism, but his work was used that way, twisted, weaponized. Well, modern Jewish-Christian dialogue has had to confront this, recognize how Josephus was misused, reclaim him from anti-Semitic interpretation, read him on his own terms, Jewish historian explaining catastrophe to his people and to posterity. The question remains, what do we call Josephus? Traitor or survivor? Collaborator or witness? Coward or pragmatist? All labels fit. None capture him completely. He was traitor to the revolution. But preserver of Jewish memory, He collaborated with Rome, but undermined Roman propaganda by recording Jewish perspective. He was coward in the cave, but brave in spending decades writing truths that please no one. Maybe the question is wrong. Maybe we should not judge, just recognize complexity, acknowledge that extreme circumstances produce complicated choices, that survival can be form of resistance, that bearing witness is sacred task even when done by flawed person. Josephus walked out of cave at Jotapata. 39 friends lay dead behind him. He had calculated, manipulated, survived. He surrendered to Romans, prophesied to Emperor, received Roman name, watched Jerusalem burn, and then he wrote it all down. Every detail, every horror, every tragedy, so that we would know, so that memory would survive, so that his people's catastrophe would not be forgotten. Traitor saved the Bible. Collaborator preserved Jewish history. Survivor became bridge between ancient world and everyone who came after. That is Josephus. Complicated, contradictory, essential. That is his legacy. That is why we still read him 2,000 years later. Not because he was good, not because he was right, because he was there, because he saw, because he wrote it down, and because without him we would have lost almost everything.